That's cool.
So let's see, we're live. Okay, so here we go. Hello and welcome to another episode of Flying High with Flutter. I'm your host, allenwyma, and today we have a returning guest. I think you are our first returning guest, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm sorry, you're actually the second returning guest, but I think you were a very first guest. And this is Eleandro Duzentos, I believe. And he came
Yes.
on last time to give quite a few tips. So yeah, I know you gave me the tip of using the native platform when I develop
Report.
my mobile apps. So that's what I actually do nowadays. Is I try to stick with Mac, make myself a Mac app, and then just export the design on mobile. So that's been a nice, good help. Anyways, how have you been since the last time we caught up?
Well, I'm alive. That's the most important thing. I'm just trying to learn as much as I can and trying to be a better developer and trying to make a good career and as always trying to help people make the world better, a better place for us.
Well, I think you've been doing that by making the world a more beautiful place, creating your nice looking apps. And I'm happy to see that you keep going, right? So the original reason I
Yeah.
brought you on before, which we didn't get a chance to get into, which was the apps you created in you have a repo. I'll go ahead and put this into the notes, but you have a repo called My Flutter Challenges. And in there you have some very beautiful, interesting apps, I think. Um, which was like the first one you actually started to work on, actually?
The first one is the last one on the list. It's the infinite scroll. This was the one that I made to explain to people how to make an infinite scroll list view that we can lazy load some data from a REST API, and it was quite a challenge for me because I was starting as a Flutter developer at that time. So I made this a project for my Flutter challenge, and yeah, that was the first one. Not so challenge right now in relation to the newest ones, but yeah, for every one started, I think it's a good project to a good challenge to try. Then we have the second one. This one was really challenge for me
Back to
because,
the infinite scroll, right? So what was the
well, yeah,
challenge
yeah.
in that? What was actually the challenge in the infinite scroll?
Well, it is more about the logic behind how to make a list view grow dynamically in connection with data coming from an API. We use the list view to build a list with data that we already have in the memory of our devices. It's the most use case for the list view into applications made with Flutter if you're not talking about internet connections, internet communication. And a lot of people starting were not inside the knowledge of how to create a list view that you can update the data at the bottom of the list view dynamically. So when the user reach the bottom, you fetch more data and insert at the bottom of the list view. How to integrate the circular progress integrated at the bottom, and how you code intercept, how you code know when the list view actually reached the bottom of it. That's something that not everyone knows. It's not too complicated, but um, it's something that it's awesome to understand how to use a list view, a scroll controller, and listen to the scroll position so you can be notified when you reach the bottom of your list view, and how you can integrate a progress indicator at the end of your list view, so you can give a feedback to the end user that you're doing something, and if he waits for that process, at the end he may get some new data from REST API, for example.
This then, right? So you said you had to create something called a scroll listener, is that right?
Yeah, I can show the code. I don't know if my screen is being shared right now.
It is, we can see.
Okay, let me just jump into the code. It's a simple code. Basically what we have is a scroll controller. A scroll controller basically is a class that can file an event when you're dealing with a scroll component, like a grid view or a list view, page view, components that you can scroll. With this class, you can basically attach an instance of the scroll control to the widget, so you can get updates about the position, the actual position of the scroll into the component, and you can make you can take decisions with that information you can extract from the scroll controller. As you can see here, I have a scroll controller that I instantiate when the state of the page is started. So once the page state is started, I then instantiate the scroll controller that is attached to the list view. As you can see here, we have a controller with a scroll controller attached. And basically what it does is to take information from our list view and pass to the scroll controller, so the scroll controller can make some computations and return the result of that computation to us, and we can use those results to take some decisions, like what we are going to do when we reach the end of our list view. For my case, what I want was to fetch more data and populate that data in the list view when I reach the end of the list view, something that I'm doing. Let me see where I'm doing it. Here, basically, I have a method called scroll listener, a void method that does not return anything, and I am attaching this method to the scroll controller using the add listener method. So it will file this method every time the scroll controller is, the list view that we have the scroll controller attached is actually scrolled, and inside of the scroll listener we can then make take some actions, like this one I'm taking here. What I'm doing is basically verify if the scroll offset is greater than or equal to the scroll position max scroll extent. The max scroll extent basically is the max 8 that the list view can have. If we would show our list view without have to scroll, how much of space it would need. That's the value that we can get from the position dot max scroll extent, and using it we can analyze if the offset that is the current position of the scroll controller is greater or equal to the max scroll extent. If it is true, that means we reached the end of the scroll view, because if our current position is equal to the max scroll extent, that means we can't scroll anymore because there's nothing else to show. That means we reach at the end of the button. So what we do next is to call this line that increments the current page we are right now, or the current page we are going to fetch, and then we call the fetch method that is responsible to fetch data from the REST API using an HTTP request, and we are just passing here the page that we just increment here, and the limit. The limit is basically the quantity of items we are going to fetch from the API. And once the request is done, we got some new data from the API. We just take this data and insert into our post list. The post list is the list that we are using to fill our list view with data. As you can see here, we have a post equal to post index, the index of the item builder that lets us run each item on the list and return the item that we need to show on the view, on the UI right now, into the list view, basically. And that's it. Something extra that we need to take into account is that if you pay attention to the animation, let me just show here a bit. When we reach the bottom, we have a progress indicator that just disappears when the new data is populated. How we can do that? We can just make something a bit clever. We know that our list have eight elements that came from the API, but we need to show an extra element when we reach the end of the list view. So what we can do is, instead of pass the post length only to the items count, we will add an extra element. So when we go to the end of the list view, we will have a space for an extra element, and then we can check into our item builder if the current element is the last element. And if this is the case, we are going to show this extra element here. That is basically a circular progress indicator. And yeah, that's it. We have our infinite scroll working.
Data left. I don't think you actually handled that case, do you?
More data left. Let me see. No, I don't. No. I didn't handle this case.
This case, how do you think would be a good way to handle this?
Well, it is easy. You need some way to know how much data you have into the REST API, into the source of your data. And basically you would make a calculation verifying that the length of data that you already fetched from the API is equal to the total of data into the API, remaining on the API. So if the length of data is equal, you know that you have nothing to fetch. There's nothing remaining, so you don't need to show this progress bar anymore. You just can stop showing it. based on the total of data you 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 have to fetch from the API or something like that. Okay, and that's the infinite scroll challenge. We can
This
check
challenge,
them.
did you just challenge yourself, or was somebody challenge you when you made this challenge?
Actually, I was writing a Medium post explaining how to do pagination with Flutter, and since it was a challenge for me, I decided to create this repo and put the code into this repo. It was myself trying to do something new.
I could see how this would be something that people really want to know, because we always get this kind of thing. You can't pull in the API of like 10,000 records, right? You have to paginate those in slowly. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. How about the next one? So then you actually go in order, right? So the next one after this one would have been your canvas clock.
Well, this was my first interaction with a canvas into Flutter. There were a lot of brand new things for me when I for this challenge, and it was based on a drivable UI. I will show here. This is the original clock. It's a simple clock, but you need to have the knowledge to create all the shapes and make it actually work in relation to the current time of your host device. So I decided to try it, and I created this project that is the Canvas clock. It's a simple project that basically uses the Canvas API of the Flutter to recreate this UI, but a working UI, not just a static clock. It is actually working. It works for desktop, it works for mobile, and it detects if you're using portrait or landscape, so it adjusts itself to the size of the screen, and it consists of some paints. When we are working with canvas in Flutter, most of the things inside the canvas are paints that we actually draw, because the canvas is like a board, a blackboard or a whiteboard, where we can actually paint whatever we want. And with the help of the Flutter, we already have some kinds of paint that we can do, geometric paints that we can do without be ourselves designing or have need to know how to make those geometric shapes work. I'm talking about shapes like circles, arcs, lines, rectangles, things like that. And what I did here was basically, if you see this image, was to design an arc. The outer arc is white here, and inside this white arc, I painted a black circle, this one, and then into the middle, I will try to zoom it so you can see it better. On the middle of the image, if you take a closer look, we have an outer arc, and we have an inner circle, this red one here. So we basically have 4 circular shapes and we have three lines. This line here, the red line, the seconds pointer, this line, the hour pointer, and this line, the minutes pointer. And the challenge was just to recreate everything with the canvas and then make it work. So this is what I made into this challenge. I will show you a bit of code. And the first thing that came out into my brain when I started this project was to try to
Sorry,
create.
do you mind, Eleandro? I think I want to
Yep.
actually make this very simple, right? Because I always hear that you can use Canvas, right? But I've never actually looked at it before. I have a couple of questions, right? So my first question is, if I do want to get into creating some custom work like you did for this clock, how would I best want to learn something like this? Did you just pick this up just by reading the docs on flutter.dev and then really understanding it from there? Or how do you actually get into understanding how Canvas works within Flutter?
We have. This is something that at the time I made this tutorial, we actually didn't have too much tutorials about how to deal with the Canvas API. And what I did was to go into some package that I used, like a package from the, I don't remember the name of this GDA, Flutter GDA, is Alexander Valesk or something like that. It's an amazing developer expert for Flutter that makes a lot of amazing UIs. I think he's from Argentina, I don't know. And he have a package that basically recreates the circular progress indicator with the canvas, and we can actually customize it. It is more customizable than the progress bar that came with Flutter. And what I did to start understanding how the canvas worked was to read the code from that package that he made and try to figure out what was he doing. Because to recreate the progress indicator, you basically need to create an arc, because the progress indicator is basically a circular line, and you need to animate it. And how he made it? He basically used a paint, created a paint, and used a method from the canvas that is called draw arc, that lets us create a circular line, and he was animating something simple. And this was the first step. I looked into his code, understood how he made it, and then I decided to try the rest of the methods that the canvas gave to me, not looking into his code anymore, but trying to test the rest of the methods that the canvas provide to me, because he was using the arc, but we have a lot of other methods like draw line, draw cycle, draw rectangle. And what I did was just to look into those methods and read what they need to create that shape. For example, for us to create a rectangle, we need to give a width, an 8, and the offset where we want to start, where we want to position that rectangle into the canvas. To create a cycle, for example, we need to give the offset of the position we want to put the cycle, and then we need to provide the radius, that is the length from the center of the cycle to the edge of the cycle. And then the canvas would create a cycle for us. And I was trying till everything was starting making sense for me, and then I just tried to combine everything I learned, and build this clock animation. I don't know if it was clear.
Some more information about what you were looking at before, but I couldn't see much. So maybe I'll take a look more later on. Okay, that's pretty cool because I always heard about using the canvas, but I really have no idea how to do that. So it's good that I can basically steal from yours. So it looks like you have a custom painter, right? Maybe we can start to walk through how your clock works.
I think if you try to see my tutorial building this clock, you will get some idea of how to use the canvas, and you can then start by yourself exploring it. Yeah. Okay, I think we can go to the next one. Or do you have some other questions about this project?
Right, so definitely in the show notes we're going to have a link to all of your projects, and so I think this clock one, at least to me, is the most interesting. I do remember degree to radian stuff. Wow, you kind of bring me back to math class from high school, geometry class, right? So
Yeah.
I do remember you have to do this kind of things. So that was fun. Was that something you just looked up in order to do the clock, right? You had to look up probably something very generic, because I think this clock problem is probably quite old, right?
Yeah, something that I did was to refresh my knowledge about geometry, because it was hard for me to remember everything as you. So I was taking a course into Khan Academy about geometry, where I get a fresh knowledge about how to deal with radians, with degrees, with the knowledge to design a cycle, what is a diameter, what is a radio, pi, things like that. It was thanks to Khan Academy that I got the knowledge back, because it was.
Academy
Yeah.
saved you in this one, then. That's
Yep.
that's good. That's what it's made for, right? It's made it
Yes.
people to learn.
And actually, I still learning math with Khan Academy, because a lot of things that I learned at the school I don't remember anymore, or I didn't learn in the right way. So Khan Academy is basically helping me fixing the gaps, the math gaps that I have right now.
Class, right? They teach you all these things, and when you learn it, you're like, why do I ever need that? Who cares about calculating degrees to radians and radians to degrees, as an example, right? And then now you're like, oh, I wish I paid attention.
Yeah, it's an important knowledge if you is the kind of developer that loves to build custom components. You're not going to build advanced custom components if you don't know math. It's impossible, because some advanced components like charts, you can't do it without a good base in math. For example, you can't just draw lines without know how to draw in the right way, because every line should reflect a mathematical formula or requirement, and without this knowledge you just can't do it. Most of the components that we use into our UIs relies on math. This clock relies on math, and we have another challenge that relies on math, that without the knowledge about geometry I wouldn't be able to do. And I'm not a math expert. I have some ideas that I can do because I don't have the right math knowledge. That's why I am learning math again into on the Khan Academy, because I want to become a great developer and overcome the limitations that my current knowledge of math is parting into what I want to achieve.
Let me just ask you one more question about this topic. Do you feel you learn more now than you did before? Like, meaning like you're studying more than what you used to do?
Yeah, sure, sure. Each day of my life, I feel like my speed of learning is drastically increasing, and the amount of content to learn that is available for me don't stop growing. And this is good, and this have its how can I say, downside, because when you have a lot of information, a lot of awesome information to into your availability, you need to choose the right ones, because you can't learn everything. You need to choose the right ones. And the big downside is that all of them are great, and it's hard to select the right ones. And another thing that I don't know and not all decisions may be good to you. Like sometimes I decide to learn something, and then I realize that, well, this is not what I really want, but I already invested time on that, and I will stop going from that way and take a new path. And it basically makes you feel like you wasted time on that path, because you reach the limit where you don't want to keep, and you wasn't able to see that before you walk into that path. This is something that sometimes happen to me, but with time you got more
Sorry,
experience.
Alejandro, do you mind to refresh your browser for the recording software? Because I got a note saying that your recording's not really working.
Whoa.
I'm not sure what happened.
Um,
So up on top next to the web browser, you just click refresh. No, no,
okay.
up top. Yep, just click that.
Let me try.
Yep.
This happened with my camera. I think I need to I can,
Computer?
yeah,
Yeah, it looks like we may have lost some data from your side.
my camera is not working. I don't know why, but I will be back soon.
Okay. So that's not too good. Looks like you're still here.
Yep, I will come back soon. Sorry,
Okay.
sorry.
No worries, it happens. It's okay. So it looks like we have quite some issues on our guest side. Hopefully we get that all solved. So apologies about that. So sometimes this happens, right? So we have guests from all over the world. Just so happens, that's just kind of what happens. There's not much else we can do. But yeah, so I can definitely play around with keeping you guys all busy. So here's the thing I can play with. Let's try this. So that was fun. So this is pretty cool. That was also fun. There's some music for you in the meantime. Hello, welcome back.
Hello. I'm back. Sorry. I think it is related to the driver, and maybe my webcam is not supported by the current operating system. It's the second time happening. So let's. Oh, I just lose my camera again.
You're still good. Still good right now.
Okay, where we were.
So we lost some of your recording, but I think we were getting the point is that in the middle of what you were saying was that you're studying a lot more now and getting a lot more things. You're progressing as a learner, right? And it's really helping your career.
And yes. When we want to,
One more thing is your microphone against your shirt.
if we want to get independent and to do great things, we need to have the right knowledge to achieve our objectives. and that's what I'm trying to do. I want to reach a level when I can build great things. I'm talking about user interface, custom components, advanced custom components that require a lot of math. And I will not be able to achieve this without learn a lot of math. And yeah, that's it. Sorry for the loss of data.
It's okay. We'll see what happens when we finally get the final recording, right? So we'll figure out what to do. Okay, so I think your next challenge, which was definitely the one that I thought was probably your most attractive one, is the Facebook desktop experience.
Yeah, the Facebook was my first desktop application, my first try of a Flutter desktop application, and I made it when the Flutter Desktop Africa Challenge was raising up here, and
So it looks like we have the same issue again. Your computer is not letting not letting the recording work again. I can't hear you at all either.
really,
Okay, I can hear you now, but I definitely cannot. It says it still cannot record. If you just press the refresh button, would that fix it?
I don't think so, because the light of the camera is blinking a lot. Yeah, we're losing a lot of frames from the camera.
Yeah.
I think it's better to turn it off so we can focus into
That's
the
totally
content of
fine
the
with me.
screen.
Let's see if that helps. But I know it said it couldn't record, so that's definitely an issue if we can't get any kind of recording. So maybe we can try the camera off. Is okay.
Okay?
You're not sharing your desktop at the moment, though.
Okay. Can you see right now?
I see everything.
Okay. About the Facebook desktop. As I said, it was my first Flutter desktop application. Was my first try at the time that I built the Facebook desktop. The Flutter desktop was in alpha for macOS only. It was not available for Linux and Windows yet, as it is right now. And basically, what I did was to use an interface based on an interface on Dribo. I don't have the link here, but I will find out and leave in the chat that is similar to what we have here. I don't know if it it will be better to show the application running. Let me try to compile it.
As you're trying to compile, I mean, I think you could probably walk through like you have a GIF, I think, or a GIF that kind of shows how to use it.
Yeah. What is? it's not a clear picture. Let me just.
If it's still attractive nonetheless. So this actually does not use the Facebook API, right?
No, no, no. It is all static. It's all static.
So this is what you think would be a better looking Facebook app, or what you envision Facebook would create for a desktop experience?
Well, I like to use clean applications, and the Facebook have a lot of information into a small space. So this quantity of information make our experience a bit annoying. And what I tried to do was to give what people must use, and leaving some room for space. Something that Facebook don't do, because they try to put as much information as possible into the space we have. Let me just start the project. Okay, it will run soon. And yeah, this is basically what I try to do. But as I said in the last podcast, it is a beautiful user interface because we have room to breathe. But if this interface were implemented by Facebook, the users would easily notice that we have a lot of issues inside of it, because not every time we have something beautiful, it means that it is accessible or functional as the user may expect. Let me see. But something I can agree is that it is a bit beautiful. It has some animations that I will show right now. Let me just wait. What is? And there it is, the Facebook application. Yeah, I'm having some issues here with the caption bar.
Okay.
Yeah, but this is the application. We have here the user interface. We have on the left the options bar, the notifications, message icons. And we have at the top the menu bar, where we would navigate into the different menus options of the application. It is statically, it's not working. Actually, it's just to give an idea of what it would be if it were working. And we have an animation here when we click an option. If you pay attention, at the bottom of the icon, we have a border that grows from the center, and it gives a good experience, a good animation experience. Feels fresh.
How did
That's
you
the
actually
kind
do
of.
that? How did you do that kind of animation?
It is quite simple. You just need to be clever enough to use the right widgets to achieve this animation. What we have here is basically a container. We have a container with a height of something like 8 pixels of height, and what we did was we have a stack. This whole component is a stack, and we have into the stack a center widget with the icon into the center because of the center widget. And at the bottom of the stack we have this container, this blue container that also use a drop shadow, a box shadow. If you take a closer look, you will see that we have blue shadow over around the container with a blue background. And what we did was to cut in half this container. All this component is cutting the container in half, and we also are using a center to position the container into the middle. And what I do to animate it is just to animate the width to the total of space that we have into the parent widget, basically. I'm just animating the width. Since we have a center widget that aligns the container into the center, it starts animating the width from the center. And that's what gives us these beautiful animations of something being born from the center and growing to the edges of the component.
Cool. How about the stories section, right? Is that also a stack, I'm guessing?
Yes, it is also a stack. We have a full component here that is the story component. From here, all this space is being consumed from the stories component. And what I did was to use a stack for each card of the story, and I use a fixed height for each card, this card containing this image, and align it to the bottom so that it leaves some space. So I could put the profile image above the card and give this awesome experience, this feel of something different into our interface. We also have a box shadow, so we can feel like we have a real component above the card, something that the light is coming and touching the above component and generating a shadow above the card. It gives a good feel when we are looking. It looks more realistic. And I also used a gradient here that starts from transparent, from the top transparent to black at the bottom. So I could write a text, in this case the name of the owner of the profile, and the idea was to contrast the color of the text with the image in the background, because if we for some reason get some white background from the image behind with this white text, it would be hard to read because of the contrast. But with a black gradient at the bottom, it is more readable for us, and this gradient is present in all images, so we can be sure that the text will always be readable regardless of the image behind of it. Actually, I'm seeing that I made here an update. It is not coming from the top to the bottom. It is just using this space here. I think it's better like this. And yeah, that's the story component.
How about the last chat? So maybe for some people who couldn't see, if you're just listening to the audio podcast, I'm sorry we're not being a little bit more vocal about kind of what's going on. So he has the story section, which is kind of cool. And so there's these cards. They look like almost like playing cards, but a little bit shorter, and they're clipped on the sides, a little bit rounded.
Yep.
And you put like a profile picture on top.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to describe, but it's definitely something that's really attractive, and I would love to put something like this into some other apps that I'm going to be making. Now, what we're talking about right now is this last chat section, which is on your far right side. And it looks like it's a vertical list of cards, and those are also they're rounded on the corners. So is that like a list tile that you created?
Um, I don't remember, but I don't think it is a list view. Actually, I don't remember if it is a column or a list view, but no, it is a list view with a custom component. It is not a list style. It is a custom component because with a list style, I wrote how can I say? List style have some predefined styles that that is hard to override, like the padding inside the list style, the component you can put at the leading, the size of the component you can put at the trailing. It would be a little bit hard to customize the list style like I did here on each of these cards. So what I did was to actually create a container with two rows. The first row here, the second row here. The first row is the header of the card containing the profile information of the person that sent the message, and the second row is the row that contains the resume of the message sent by the person. And we here have an icon just to give clear feedback to the user that this component is a message component, and if he clicks into this component, he's going to see the chat. The same that I did here at your friends. We have here the message icon, so that if the user take a look to it, he already know that if he clicks into this component, he's going to chat with this person. And yeah, it has a simple animation. When you hover the component, it just animate to the left, and when you get out, it get back to the right, and that's it.
I quite like this. I might have to like I said, steal some of the things you did in here because it's really, really attractive.
Yeah, we have an error here because I think I did not activate the text overflow ellipse, and the text is using more space than the card have. That's why we have this error here. If I resize the window, I think the error is going to disappear. Let me try. Oh, sorry, the cards. Oh, the cards are not responsive. They have a fixed size, so I can't change the size of each one to get rid of this error. But basically, I just need to enable the text overflow to ellipses, so it will add those three dots when the text overflows the space of the card.
Okay, all good. So this is pretty cool. Is there anything else special you want to show in here, or I think maybe we might have time for just one more, which I think your Twitter desktop is also pretty cool, but I think after looking at Facebook, they're pretty similar. The media player is something I also want to take a look at, but maybe another time. But I think the MacBook keyboard is something that's like your latest challenge, and I think that to me is probably the most difficult for me to understand how the whole thing works.
It was not hard to make, actually. I can tell you that it was not too hard to make. I did it in, let me see, 2 hours, something like that. it was easy for me to make the MacBook keyboard. Actually, I will try to run it here, and I will explain what I did to make the MacBook keyboard. It's about experience. What makes it good to see is that it looks a bit realistic, and it is closer to the real MacBook keyboard. The size of each key, the distribution of each key, the colors, the shadows, all those things contribute to give that experience, that feeling of a real MacBook keyboard. It's about details. It is running. I think my camera is working right now. Let me try. Yeah, it's back.
I can definitely see you.
Let me see. And here we have the MacBook. And what I did, how I made this challenge. I was walking into LinkedIn, seeing posts, and then I saw a girl that did this challenge with HTML and CSS, but her design was not so symmetric. There were some things that were giving unrealistic feel of the keyboard that I felt that I could do better. So I tried to make the same with that. But the first thing that was hard for me was where to start, because the keyboard she made was not based on a real keyboard. She just tried it from her mind. And what I tried to do was to actually use a real keyboard and bring it with Flutter. So the first step I did was to actually go to Google and search for MacBook keyboard. So I searched for MacBook keyboard. I think I will find the MacBook keyboard I used to build this one. Let me see. I think that's the keyboard. I don't know. Let me see. Yeah, something like that. This keyboard here. And I just took a closer look to the image and try to replicate it with Flutter, and take a closer look to the details, how they distributed each key, what were the difference of each row of keys, and try to find a pattern for the keys, something that I actually find out looking to a real MacBook. The first thing I realized was that the first row was a bit smaller in terms of height and then the rest of the rows. If you look, the first row is using less space than the rest of the rows. I'm talking about the height. And the rest of the rows are using the same height. The only row that has a smaller height is the first one. So I started from here, creating the first row. No, that was not the first step. Actually, the first step was to build this background here, where I used a container with a border radius, this one, and then I split this container into two rows. The keyboard row, the top one, and the trackpad row, the bottom one. Then I designed the trackpad. Into the trackpad we have just a container with a border with a brown color. Nothing special. It's just a border with a brown color that makes this feels like a real trackpad, because the border looks like a shadow. The light is not going over this elevation, and this creates like a depth into the trackpad. We feel like it is above this part of the bottom of the MacBook. And then what I tried to do was to recreate a more profound layer here at the keyboard, because the MacBook keyboard have how can I say, a depth, or it's a bit deep in relation to this layer. It has I don't know how to explain, but basically we have this space that when we got some light we have a bit of shadow. This shadow is just to give to the people that will see the MacBook keyboard that this thing is a bit deep in relation to the full MacBook layer. And to create this, I actually used a negative shadow. When we are working with shadows, commonly the people just use positive numbers, and the positive numbers are for outer shadows. But I made a research that I find out that Flutter also accepts a negative value for shadows, so it will produce an inner shadow instead of an outer shadow. So what we have here is an inner shadow, a shadow to inside, and inside of this container we have a padding that separates the keyboards, each key, from the margins of this container, and leave space for the shadow. And then what I did was to try to find out on the MacBook image a pattern, and the pattern that I found was that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows. There are 6 rows, and the first row is the row that have less 8. The rest of rows have the same 8, and then I realized that to distribute each of the keyboards on this container, I would need some component that would represent each row, and that's what I did. I created a keyboard row component that is wrapping each row of keyboards inside our MacBook keyboard. And this component actually have a single property that is the 8 of each row. Each row have a fixed 8. No, just the first one. The first one have a fixed 8. And then I just created 6 rows. The first one, the second one, and each of the rows. Then I realized that we here have different kinds of keys. Not all keys are equals. The first keys only have one symbol. For example, we have the F1, F2, F3. We don't have this symbol here and this number. We just have labels and nothing more. This is a kind of keyboard. And then I realized that we have other kinds of not another kind of keyboard, but it's the same keyboard but with the label aligned to the left. And we also have some keys that have the label aligned to the right. So this kind of information gives us a knowledge of how the keyboard component of the key component should work. I already know that the keyboard of the key component needs to accept a label. It needs to accept a background, this black background. It needs to accept an alignment argument so we can decide where we are going to align the label. For this case, I set the alignment to the center left, so we have the label ESC to the left. And this is the most basically keyboard, this is the most basically key component that we have. And then we have some other types of keys, like this one. This is a MacBook key, a single MacBook key. And then we have the multi-shard MacBook key that are the kind of MacBook keys that have more than one label. It has a label and a symbol. And this is the other kind of key that we have that lets us define a label. This is the label, the 4 is the label, and the symbol, the dollar sign. And for this, I just used the same key component for the second row, and then I used the same key component that I'm using here on the first row, but with an alignment to bottom left on the label. So I am cleverly reusing the components to recreate all the keys into the MacBook. Another kind of key that I find out was the special keyboards. The special keyboards is the kind of keyboard that accept a symbol and accepts a label, but they actually don't share the same space as these keyboards, as these keys on the first and the second, the third and the fourth rows are sharing. I will show you from the code. Let me just open here the code so you can see how actually I splitted every keyboard into components. We have the main widget, that is the MacBook, that represents everything on the MacBook. All you are seeing here is the MacBook itself. It is a widget that represents the MacBook. And then let me take the code. And then inside the MacBook we have an animated container. This animated container is responsible from animating the color of the MacBook when we select a color here. You can find the color scheme on the code. This is the MacBook color scheme. It's a custom class that receives a name, a primary color, and the trackpad border color. Those are the colors that change when we click on a different color on the right panel. And then inside the animated container we have a box shadow, an outer box shadow, that is the shadow outside the.
Looks like I lost your audio again.
Why? Let me see what's going on. I'll turn off the camera. Can you hear right now?
But it looks like you're not recording again.
Yeah. Your computer is not allowing Riverside to record. Please refresh to continue recording. I will refresh just a bit. Okay, it's working?
Yes, seems to be working.
Okay. Yeah, I was talking about the shadow, and then I'm going to show the trackpad. What we have, as I said, is basically a column where we have as the first child the MacBook keyboard, that is actually this keyboard you're seeing here, and then below we have the trackpad that is inside the center, a center widget, so we can have the trackpad aligned to the center of the second row. It's something a bit simple to read because the code is explaining itself how it is working. We have a color scheme to the trackpad and we have a color scheme to the MacBook keyboard. And then we can jump into the MacBook keyboard where we will find the...
You're sharing your screen at the moment, though.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry. Yeah, I will show again. I was showing how we have how we distributed the MacBook keyboard and the trackpad. As we can see, we have a column, and this column has two childs. The first child is the MacBook keyboard that actually is showing the MacBook keyboard, this one. All things we are seeing on the first row is actually the keyboard itself. And then we have the let me see, the trackpad that is aligned to the center. We are using a center widget to align the trackpad to the center, so we can get the trackpad on the center of the second row, as the real MacBook actually is. And going inside the MacBook keyboard, what we have is an animated container that receives a color. This is the color of the keyboard, the background of the keyboard, not the key itself, but the keyboard, this color here on the background. It has the same color of the MacBook widget itself. And here are negative speed radius. This negative speed radius is what actually makes our box shadow goes inside instead of outside. Is what gives us this feeling of an inner shadow. That's why I am using a negative value to the speed radius. To looks like it is more deep than the rest of the MacBook. And then I have a column. This is actually the column that receives each key's rows. We have the first rows of keys. This is the first, this row of keys rows. And what we have is a list of keys of different kinds. The first one is the single sharp key. The single sharp key, as I said before, is the kind of key that just have a label and nothing else. It's just a label and it does not have a symbol. As you can see, this is the first key, the ESC key. It is using an expand because the size of the ESC key is different from the rest of the keys on the right. And the last key, this is the key that actually turns on and shuts down the computer. And it has also a different size. So what I realized was that this key was those keys, the ESC and the shutdown and turn on keys, were the only keys that have custom sizes. The rest of the keys have the same size. So what I did was to use a fixed size to the ESC. Let me confirm that. Yes, I have a fixed size to the single sharp. And let me see, expanded. No, actually it is using an expanded, so it will share the same size. I don't remember anymore why I'm using an expanded. Let me see if I can remember. Because I want them all to share the same size. That means that the only button, the only key that is using a different size is the shutdown key. Let's find out if this is real. And yeah, there is the MacBook key is not using an expanded. So the rest of the keys are sharing the same size, but the MacBook key, this is the key that turns on and shuts down the computer, is not using an expanded. For the F1, F2 and the rest of functions keys, I am using a for loop so that I don't need to repeat the same kind of keys again and again. I think we could resume the code running just a for loop, because this is the pattern that all these keys have. They share the same specifications. The only thing that changed is the last number of the label. So I decided to use a for loop for it. And then we have the second row that actually use a different kind of keys. We will see it. We are using a single sharp key here, a MacBook key. This is the most basic kind of key that we have, the MacBook key, a single sharp key that receives a label, and we have a second type of keys, the multi-sharp key. The multi-sharp key is the kind of key that lets us use two labels, the lower sharp and the upper sharp. The lower sharp is the sharp that we can see below, like the number, this symbol. All the sharps below are the lower sharps, and the upper sharps are actually the sharps that we can see up, like the exclamation symbol, this symbol, the hash symbol, and all those symbols, as we can see here too. And we have also used the single sharp key here, where we only have the label and nothing else. Those ones are using a multi-sharp too. This is using a single sharp with alignment to the bottom right, the same here. Here at the arrow buttons, we are actually using the single sharp key with actually we did something different here. We are using a row, and inside the row we have another row. This row is divided by 3 spaces, one for this button. We have a column in the middle that we also split it into 2 rows for the upper bottom and the bottom button, and we have also the right key that is basically replicating the arrows keys from the MacBook keyboard itself. And this is basically what I did. I just tried to reuse the keys using a composition, how can I say? I'm not using inheritance to recreate the different kinds of keys. I'm using actually composition, where I have the most basically kind of keys, that is actually the MacBook key, a simple MacBook key that accepts any kind of child, and then I have other kinds of keys that uses the MacBook key, like the single sharp key, that actually the only difference is that it passes a text inside the MacBook key that receives a child. We also have the multi-sharp key that actually passes, gives a column of 2 texts inside the MacBook key, and we also have a special kind of key. I don't remember anymore why I created a special kind of key. It's
Having an issue with the recording. If you could just quickly refresh. Can I hear you at the moment? You still have to refresh anyways.
at least, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you at this moment. But yeah, in order for this to record, it looks like I still have to refresh.
Yes, I will refresh again. But that means we are losing the recordings.
Shouldn't be. I think it'll get uploaded, but we'll find out later on. If there's a problem, we'll figure out what we want to do. Maybe we'll have to record another one more time.
Let me refresh it.
Okay. So I don't think we probably don't need your webcam, but I think we probably need to have the screen come up one more time. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sharing.
And of course
yeah.
your microphone also.
Sorry. And yeah, the special key is actually the keys, all those keys that the special keys of the keyboard. I'm talking about the control key, the option key, and the command key. I think for some reason I am treating them as special keys. I don't remember the reason, but there may be a reason for this other kind of MacBook keyboard. And yeah, that's basically what I did. I just try to reuse as much code as I can, and I try to use the MacBook space cleverly, and try to get as near as possible from the real MacBook keyboard. It's a lot of code, but it's just a lot of code seeing it was not hard to write it. It don't took too much time to write this code.
I think the
And
number
yeah,
one question people may be asking is, what did you use for state management?
and right now I just have one option. It's the only one. I am too comfortable with it, and I don't plan to move to another one. And it's called a Riverpod. Riverpod for me is right now the best state management around there, around there. And the reason is because it works. Uh, it is clever enough to make everything easy to use, and you don't need to write a lot of code into your Flutter widgets because you can separate all that code that all the state managements need you to declare into your widget tree outside creating providers. And it has some other advantage like auto dispose, and I don't know how to explain. It just feels clean for me in relation
Yes.
to other state managements like block and getx. And yeah, but Riverpod has a downside of not being newbie friendly. You need to have a bit of experience with Flutter before you use Riverpod because it brings a lot of new stuffs. And something that it brings is that you need to think of state management in another way, not how the block works. It have a new way of works with states. So you basically need to reinvent yourself to the way reports works. Yeah.
Keyboard project, you're actually using Riverpod for that one, you're saying?
No. There's no
Not for
state
that one.
to.
There's no
There's no
But
state.
there is the state of clicking on the keyboard color, right?
No. There's not. I didn't implemented this animation. But yeah, it would finally need a state. But it is the kind of thing that actually don't need a state management. You can just use set state to do this animation.
So you just use set
really
state. Okay. I thought
Yeah.
that's what you're using, but I just want to double check. Maybe you
No.
using something else.
It's not, and it would be a big overkill to use a state management just to animate a click. We can just transform the widget into a stateful widget and use a set state, or if we don't want to use a set state, we can just use a value notifier and listen to the changes of the value notifier and rebuild what we need to rebuild inside the widget with value list enable notifier or something like that. I don't remember how the listener widget it's called, but yeah, that's the best approach I would recommend for this case. But set state is enough.
Okay. This is very cool. I would love to dig. I might just dig into this one more too, because I like the way everything looks. It seems very, very simple. When I first look at it, it looks complicated, but after you walk me through it, I feel, okay, actually, it's not that bad. And Flutter is quite amazing what you can do with just simple widgets, right? This one, as far as I
Yeah.
can tell, doesn't have any custom painting at all.
Yeah, there's nothing. I'm just using what Flutter gave to me. There's nothing new.
Yeah, definitely.
There's-
But you do have some new insights,
there's-
right? The idea of a negative shadow spread, right? The shadow spread radius. That one is definitely new to me.
Yeah, there are some things on Flutter that you just start knowing about when you actually need it. Because if you never had a reason to use a negative swing radius. There's no need for you to know that. And since people don't use it a lot, it's hard for you to find out that it actually works like that.
Pretty cool. We may have you back on to maybe re-record this episode. I don't know. Hopefully, we can get everything we need out of it. And also, I think we may have you back on to talk more about your music player because that one's also super attractive. But we just don't have the time at this moment.
Yep.
We're
Well,
saving it over time.
the music player is a good project. I think we can leave it to a failed podcast because of the time, and I will try to find a better machine. Try to fix what is happening with my camera, so we can have a better recording this time. And a project that I recommend people to also try to learn is the mouse pointer pulse. It's also a good project to take a look into the code. It uses the Canvas API and provides a beautiful animation that uses a bit of math to calculate the hypotenuse and animate to the edge of the window from the center where the mouse is. Yeah, that's it.
That was quite attractive too. That one is nice. So that's something else to take a look at. Okay.
This idea, the idea from this project came from the Khan Academy when I were learning about the hypotenuse, how to calculate the hypotenuse. I learned that with that formula, I would be able to create a cycle from the position of my mouse to the most distant edge corner of the screen. So I decided to implement that formula to create this animation because I learned how to use it on Khan Academy. So for everyone trying to create great things, Khan Academy is a good place to start. How more knowledge you get from the more interesting your animations will start performing. So I recommend people to start exploring, and if they would be if they are able to support them, go ahead and support them. They deserve it.
Seems like you're really pushing hard today.
I think when someone help us, we need to support, and that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm doing.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to shout out to before we sign off?
Yeah, I just recommend people to not stop learning, and Flutter isn't nothing hard. The only thing that we need is to explore it in a good way. As I showed on the MacBook keyboard, I didn't make anything special. The only things that I made that I may say that may sound special for other people is that I used the right widgets to achieve the MacBook keyboard, but are not widgets that people are not aware. I just used a container. I just used an animated container. I just use it. Basically, most of the widgets are containers, columns, rows, and things that people are aware of. So you just need to think because you're not what you did. You're how you think. So we need to be good on thinking. How good we think, better things we do will be. That's it. And thank you, Alan, for the invitation. I hope to get back soon with better content and with more people to share what I have to show.
Yeah, I hope to have you back on. I'm really always impressed with all the things you're working on. So again, let's hopefully have a better recording next time. No,
Yep.
nothing against you. Stuff happens, right? I'm just glad that we can find a time to connect. And looks like you got the same issue again. Maybe just wait for you for one moment.
It was because
It's
of the
okay.
camera.
It's okay. It happens. What I wanted to say is, it's good to have you on. And again, I'm always impressed with your work, and you definitely motivate me to dig more into Flutter. And now I'm going to be digging more into Khan Academy when I have the time, because it seems like I also need to pick up some more skills. So it's good to have you back. I hope to have you again in the future. And yeah, I'll see you again.
That's it, Alan. Thank you, Plangora, for the invitation here on the Flying High with Flutter. Next time, let's see if I can bring someone with me and have more people on the chat with us.
Yeah, I would love to have a round table with some people in Africa if we can do that.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you again. Anything you need, you know uh, where to reach me on LinkedIn, Twitter. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.